Hello and welcome to our second AutoCAD for Mac Facecast. I'd like to start off this little session with our lovely safe harbor agreement as we did last time. So just so you're all aware, we will make statements regarding planned and future development efforts for our existing and new products and services in this session. These statements are not intended to be a promise or a guarantee of future delivery of products, services, or features, but merely reflect our current plans, which may change. Purchasing decisions should not be based on reliance of these statements. The company assumes no obligation to update these forward-looking statements and reflect events that occur or circumstances that exist to change after the date of which they were made. And with that, I think we'll go back to our camera here. And today we were going to talk about talk with a customer and get sort of a sense from from some of the models that were posted up on the Facebook page, but unfortunately we had a last-minute cancellation, so we couldn't do that. But I am joined here today by our Senior Vice President of Platform Solutions and Emerging Business Division, and was the original director of my group 11 years back when I was hired, Mr. Amar Hansball. So we're going to have Amar answer a couple questions here. So I think what's on everybody's mind is, last year we introduced AutoCAD for Mac and products for mobile and web, and why do we do that, Amar?
All right. So first, good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for having me here. So to answer your question, Rob, I think the answer to that really lies with you all, which is our customers. I think since the time I have been in this role, I have regularly received messages from people. Product managers like yourself and other people have been receiving messages to the tune that we had a book that was probably a foot thick of requests. And so we kept hearing that people really liked AutoCAD and people really liked the Mac and they wanted to see the marriage of these two. And since we do listen and respond to customers, we decided to go to the Mac. The other thing I think is also the fact that we saw the resurgence of interest in Mac as the platform ever since the iPhone and iPad started coming out. In fact, Mac PCs started taking off. You've always seen the kid at Starbucks sit around with his Mac computer, and certainly in the education market, we felt that it was really important to give students a native experience on the hardware that they're so used to. So I would say a combination of our professional customers as well as students who are both really were firm believers in the Mac platform really led us to re-examine, and then as our technology got more portable, we were able to get back to the Mac platform.
Excellent. So with that sort of success, what future products do you think we see us bring into the Mac?
Yeah, I mean, by the way, I really liked your safe harbor recital. I was very well done. So sort of staying in that mode, So since we brought AutoCAD for the Mac out, we've added products to the Mac platform. Sketchbook Pro, for example, which was a mobile platform and PC platform application, moved to the Mac. So there are other products that we are looking at bringing to the Mac, really again in response to the types of users that are on the Mac platform, as well as what we hear from folks coming in. So today Autodesk has media and entertainment products on the Mac. I think more design apps will start to show up on the Mac. I did just say, I can't make a firm commitment on a particular product, but we certainly hear from our creative users and we hear from folks in the architecture field about the kinds of things that they'd like to see on the Mac, and we're really thinking about what more we could do there.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much, Mark.
Thank you,
appreciate
guys.
you
All right.
coming by.
Thanks.
So with that, I think we will start taking a few questions. I'll bring back Mr. Matt Stein. You remember him from last time.
Okay.
So I think we got a lot of really good questions last time, and a lot of people picked them up and started talking about them. So I think we'd like to do that again. So if you've got questions on your mind, things we didn't answer last time, this is again your opportunity to have Matt and I directly answer anything that's on your mind. So any questions from the forum so far?
Yeah, Matt, this is a good question for you. David, who is viewing the Facecast right now, would like to know if there will be a more organized toolbar, kind of similar to the ribbon for AutoCAD for Mac.
Right. In the near future, there probably will not be something as similar to the ribbon. In terms of organization, I don't know if you mean the co-location of rich controls like combo boxes and sliders with command buttons. We don't plan on marrying the two right now. What we have on AutoCAD for Mac is kind of a tiered system where there's the toolsets palette, which opens up by default on the left, which has all your command access, which was also in the AutoCAD ribbon. For all property editing and other kind of rich control editing, we use the property palette exclusively almost. The exception is in contextual states, like when you're editing mText or editing a table cell in the block editor, then the visor comes down, and that's kind of the
moral equivalent.
Right, the moral equivalent of the ribbon contextual tabs.
Yeah, no, and from the non-designer perspective, like, to me the two are, they don't necessarily look similar, but they are organized similarly.
Right.
So if the question's about organization, like you got different toolset palettes, they're just like different tabs of the ribbon. You've got kind of organized groups, which are just like panels and
Right.
flyouts, and so I think the organization is actually very similar in my mind.
It is. And if you don't like the out-of-the-box organization of how all the panels are laid out, you can go and run the customize command, and you can go and configure your own panels.
Yeah, create new ones, rearrange them, make it smaller, whatever you like.
Good question.
Here's another good question. Do we need an iMac with at least 4 gigabytes to run AutoCAD?
I think I'm trying to remember the system requirements off the top of my head. I think 3 gigs of memory was the requirement. So in terms of the recommended system requirements, you don't necessarily need an iMac. It will run on a MacBook Pro. It'll even run on a Mac Mini. Even the MacBook Airs. I just got one of those, which is pretty cool.
That was pretty cool.
But yeah, I upgraded it to 4 gigs of RAM. In general, the more RAM you have, the bigger the drawing you can open. So if you deal with large drawings, I would definitely recommend maxing that out as much as possible. But in terms of just being able to load the app, I think you only need 3 gigs of RAM.
Right.
Victoria, who is viewing today, is switching from a PC to a Mac. She's having issues viewing the program. Is there a way to switch to 2D view settings without having issues?
2D view settings. One of the things AutoCAD for Mac does not have is the view dialog, if that's what you mean, Victoria.
Yes, that is exactly what she means.
There are ways to switch views with the view cube and with the controls in the upper left of the viewport, which allow you to change views, change your visual style, and your viewport configurations.
Yep. No, and all the standard sort of, not sort of 2D persistent views, but all the pan zoom controls are the same. Like, you should be able to see everything that you can see in AutoCAD for Windows, but as you say, the named view dialog has not been ported.
Rob, here's a simple question.
Simple. I like simple.
In a nutshell, what is AutoCAD?
What is AutoCAD? Oh, dangerous question.
A trick question.
Yeah. So to me, AutoCAD is, the premier design, drafting, and documentation engine, that's kind of on the market today. So I mean, I learned AutoCAD in college. I took a bunch of classes, but they were predominantly engineering classes, not AutoCAD classes. But AutoCAD was the tool I needed to use to be able to do my job. And I think that's true of most of our customers. Like, it's a professional application that allows you to provide the documentation. And it's kind of symbolic documentation. Like, a lot of people look at drawings, who aren't necessarily trained in them. Like, the dash line means something different than the solid line. And like AutoCAD is really, really good at providing all of that engineering and analysis documentation, which can be read and is part of standardizations. It's the drawing formats are frankly part of government building regulations in many countries in the world. So I think it's really the premier application for doing large scale drawings. And AutoCAD has been around long enough that we've tuned the performance of it so we can have really big drawings and lots of XREFs with lots of projects, different people with different responsibilities working on different parts of the drawing, collaging the whole thing together in one big.
It's very powerful,
project.
very flexible, very customizable.
And I think we're kind of venturing. We're redefining AutoCAD a little bit in certain ways. We've ventured into 3D for the last couple of years. With solid modeling, surface modeling, subdivision mesh modeling, materials and rendering. we're moving things onto the web with AutoCAD WS. So I think, today it's sort of the design and drafting documentation engine, but I think tomorrow it will be probably much more in a broader sense.
Right.
Great, thank you for that. In AutoCAD for Mac, does it have easy perspective snapping?
Perspective snapping. So presumably, perspective versus orthographic mode. So it should, yeah. It's the same snapping behavior and same in-canvas behavior as AutoCAD for Windows. So there's snapping in perspective mode is a little bit funky because you don't know whether you're in the UCS plane or you're going to click to something outside of the plane. And so by default, you draw entities in the UCS plane unless the snap brings you out of it. So it's a little bit tricky, but I think it's the exact same behavior in AutoCAD for Windows.
It should be the same as Windows, and anything that we've done there with respect to 3D snapping should also be in AutoCAD for Mac.
Yeah.
We have a gentleman who has trouble switching between layers. Specifically, layers won't deselect, and the selecting layer will not be selected. Did you get that?
A little bit.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound right.
Are there any tips for maybe fixing it?
I think the expected behavior is, in the layer dialog,
you can just double-click or toggle the selected layer from the drop-down box. If that's not working for you, he could always send something to the feedback alias, or we can get his email and try to get a solution to you.
Yeah, and I would recommend also the service packs, making sure you're fully patched. There's been defects in AutoCAD for Mac that we've patched up over the last couple of months, and even depending upon which version of the operating system you're on, we had an issue where I believe the 10.6.7 release of Mac OS 10 actually broke like copy and paste inside of AutoCAD. We released a service pack in about a week once we found it, and fixed it up. So I would definitely recommend patching it all the way up, patch your operating system all the way up, and try it again and see if that works. Yeah. If not, as Matt says, report the defect because that doesn't sound right.
Great. So Randy Miller has reported that there are a lot of choices when going to the print submenu. Are there any tutorials out there or advice?
I believe I think we have some training videos, possibly on AutoCAD Exchange. So AutoCAD.autodesk.com. I think there's a print video in there. I think there might also be a print video in the welcome screen. So if you go to I think it's the Windows menu of your AutoCAD for Mac session, bring up the welcome screen. There should be like 7 videos there. I think one of them's about plotting, so that should be helpful. But in general, plotting in AutoCAD is it's a complex, powerful system. Like printing to scale is not something that many other applications have to deal with, but we're very keen on that. So there's unfortunately a lot of options which can be a bit intimidating, I think, for new users.
Right. And on AutoCAD for Mac, we actually try to streamline that and hide some of the more advanced options right out of the box to make it easier. So it sounds like there's just a couple options there that need to get looked at.
And we've heard feedback that the plotting is a bit difficult. So I think we're looking at some things internally to try and make that easier.
Right.
Here's a future question. Are you going to introduce AutoCAD for Mac LT?
We unfortunately, as per the Safe Harbor and RevRec rules, we can't talk about future product releases with any certainty, unfortunately. But I will say that there's a lot of people asking for it. I think finding the right mix in the market is definitely interesting for us, and obviously on Windows, LT is a very successful product. So we're looking at ways to do that in the future.
Can you tell everyone how they might be able to participate in the beta program? And on that order, what are the expectations for those involved in the beta program? So
the expectations are pretty low. So once you're in the beta program, you don't have to do anything, I guess is what I mean.
Just download it.
You download the product, you test it out, you post some comments. There's no official obligation, I guess is what I meant to say.
Right. So they don't have to participate 10 hours a week?
No, there's no minimum thing. Honestly, if it installs and it runs on your system with your language operating system and your particular Mac configuration, like if you think about the number of permutations of different languages, different language keyboards, different computer configurations, different graphics cards,
Right.
you know, your line of business, be it architecture or, you know, construction or manufacturing, industrial design, like when you put all those combinations together, it's very difficult for the internal testing team to test all of those permutations. So even if you just download, install, and run it, and you know it doesn't fail, like I'd say that's considered a success.
Yeah.
So you know, there are higher engagement kind of opportunities inside once you're inside the beta program, where we have more sort of a raised commitment level, and you have more interaction with our team. But that's you have to start in the beta program first, and then we sort of graduate you up to that. But yeah, in terms of getting onto the beta program, you go to beta.autodesk.com and register yourself, sign up for an account, and then if, like we mentioned last time, if you use the code A, the number 4M, beta, all one word, no spaces, all lowercase, then we'll, as we have beta programs in the future, we'll try and get you signed up.
Yeah, and the beta program is really where the user experience team goes, and the whole team really, to kind of talk to our users, to you, before the products even ship, so we can kind of get the feedback on the new features going into the release. And we just take that feedback directly, and we kind of put it into our product planning, and we kind of massage our designs with it. So definitely very beneficial for us.
Matt, are you drinking tea or coffee?
This is decaffeinated English Earl Grey tea.
There you go.
There you go.
Nice. The drink of choice this morning. Here's a good question. Can I create renderings and animations in AutoCAD for Mac?
You can create renderings in AutoCAD for Mac. You cannot create animations at the current time.
Right. Yeah, I think the AniPath command is not supported in AutoCAD for Mac. In AutoCAD for Windows, you draw a spline, and then you say, okay, animate the camera along this path, and that is not supported in AutoCAD for Mac. But the same materials and the same rendering capabilities are all in AutoCAD for Mac.
Yeah.
Tell me, how do you decide what languages to localize the product into? I personally would love to see it in German.
Excellent. Good question. Obviously, localization is a rather expensive effort for us, so we don't take it lightly, and it's primarily a business decision. So we look kind of at the market size and the applicability of that language in how many markets. So language like French can be sold in both Canada and in France, and so we kind of size the market opportunity that way. Luckily for AutoCAD for Mac, there's not a lot of country-specific stuff, which is very different than, say, AutoCAD Architecture, which has country local code content built into it. So the sidewalk in France is the sidewalk detail in France is probably different than the sidewalk detail in Canada. But luckily for AutoCAD for Mac, it's pretty generic based on language. So we kind of look at the number of people we think will buy the product, and it's just a return on investment calculation.
I would absolutely love to see PDF Underlay. How do you decide what new features you'll put into the product?
For the most part, it's also kind of a return on investment, but I think return is measured in many different ways. There's the dollar side of return, and then I think there's also obviously a customer satisfaction angle to that as well. So we look at each one of these features and how much people want. Like, we have various surveys out there. We go to the betas and ask them. And even on Autodesk's website, we have a survey going. So we'll figure out, okay, people like PDF Underlay. What does it take to do PDF Underlay? Do we have to license technology for that? Do we have to, port over the existing feature from AutoCAD for Windows? And that will, depending upon what it was written in, will either be cheap or expensive. One of the interesting things is that some of the older features, like the line command, ran on Unix when AutoCAD ran on Unix way back when, and the fact that Mac is now on Unix makes it a lot easier to port those kinds of features that have been there for a long time when AutoCAD supported Unix. Features that have been developed more recently, in languages that are a bit more dependent on Microsoft, like C# and stuff like that, we have a more difficult time porting, and it's more expensive for us to work on. That doesn't mean we're not going to do it, but it does mean if you look at a PDF underlay and you look at something that might be a little more in canvas, like say in the Iron Man release, there's the associative array command where there's a lot of in-canvas tools and grips and stuff like that. That's much easier to port because the in-canvas behavior is the same on AutoCAD for Windows as it is for Mac. When we start having dialogues and other things that are outside the application that have Windows dependencies, the cost side goes up. So even though the demand side could be pretty high, we got to look at the cost side as well.
Jen, who is with us this morning, she is a new AutoCAD for Mac user, and she is asking, how does she create a PDF that is a reasonable size? So not 2 megabytes per layout, for example. She does not have problems with this size issue in AutoCAD for Windows, but her experience with the Mac, it's just making massive files, massively large.
Yeah,
I don't know off the top of my head.
I can't say I know too much about that, but I will say that AutoCAD for Mac uses the native Mac OS X PDF driver, which is different than the AutoCAD for Windows. So on AutoCAD for Windows, there is no native PDF driver, so we had to build our own. Versus we're trying to use the operating system as much as possible. So our printer pipeline, essentially, if you will, kind of routes to the PDF output engine that's native on OS X. And I think there are definitely differences between the PDF output for that reason, between the Apple driver and on Mac OS X and the Autodesk driver on Windows. Yeah. So I can't speak to the exact size things, but those are probably the root cause of the difference.
Okay, great. I've heard of a product, or I think it might be a feature or something. It's called AutoCAD WS. How does that work or integrate, or how do you use that with AutoCAD for Mac? Can you tell us what it is first, I guess?
Yeah, so AutoCAD WS is a application that lives on the web. It's also accessible from mobile devices like your iPhone, your iPad, just recently Android devices. It pretty much allows you to view and mark up drawing files on the go. So you might be out in the field, take out your iPad or your iPhone, and you can actually have a copy of it here, but you can actually bring up the drawings that you have stored in the cloud on the AutoCAD WS servers and view them on the go pretty much. So the way it works with AutoCAD for Mac is, I think if you look in the file menu, there is functionality there to upload a drawing to AutoCAD WS, and you'll be asked to log in with your AutoCAD, I believe, single sign-on account. And from there you can just start storing your drawings in the cloud on AutoCAD WS and view and edit them from pretty much anywhere.
And there's also a pretty big sharing component as well. So once you upload it there, if you want to share your drawing with somebody else, you can take a link, depending upon the permission settings that you can designate. If you want to just send a link to your friend, you upload your drawing from AutoCAD for Mac to the AutoCAD WS servers, like Matt said, and then you can send a link, and then that customer can download either the browser version, just click the link and the browser version loads, or they download the Mac App Store mobile application, either the iOS or Android version, and they can share there as well. You can actually do real-time sharing where you both see kind of the same screen, and if you draw a rectangle if one customer draws a rectangle, the other customer will see that same rectangle. It's pretty cool. You should check it out. It's free. So.
Yep.
David has an excellent question out there.
I like excellent
questions.
questions.
I just don't know if you can answer this, but we'll ask it. So how many seats of AutoCAD for Mac have we sold to date?
I know that we're not going to be able to answer. So we know, but we can't tell you. So unfortunately, we don't individually report those things in a public forum.
All right. Well, I am trying to see if there are more questions here. Okay. Actually, yeah, we just got one in from Anthony. His question has to do with hardware support and optimization. what Mac graphics card is optimal for AutoCAD for Mac? Or what do you suggest?
Optimal? So there's basically two variations, right? The ATI cards and the NVIDIA cards. In terms of maximum, like there's not really a brand preference. In my playing with it, I think the ATI card's a little bit better. The onboard graphics memory is probably the biggest thing that would affect your frame rate. If you want to buy the best possible computer you can, I'd probably buy a Mac Pro Tower, where you can actually swap out the graphics card. Every other kind of Mac, you have to live with the graphics card they give you. I mean, you might be able to change it when you buy it, but in my Mac Pro, I can't swap out the graphics card. So I would get a Mac Pro with as much memory as you can afford, especially if you have large drawings, large XREFs, and that sort of thing. Then I would get probably the highest end ATI card you could get, especially if you do 3D, where we've got the frame rate will be directly affected. So the memory is usually proportional to the size of the drawing. The graphics card is proportional to the frame rate on screen. So if you're looking for 30 to 60 frames a second, if you buy like the ATI, I'm forgetting the model number, I think it's like the 9800, something like that. That's probably the best you can buy right now.
We've got another customer or another question around AutoCAD WS. Will AutoCAD WS come to WebOS?
WebOS, that's the Palm HP one now?
Yeah.
I don't think we know of any explicit plans. However, the AutoCAD WS team will be here next week. So that team is normally based in Israel, will actually be here in San Francisco. So I think the next Facecast will not be about AutoCAD for Mac, but will be about AutoCAD WS, where you could probably they'll be more apt to answer the question. As far as I know, there's no officially stated plans for WebOS.
And Anthony has a follow-up question to his graphics card question that he asked. He says the built-in Intel graphics on MacBooks, do they work adequately enough? Has there been any testing on those graphics?
We did quite a bit of testing. The integrated Intel graphics card, ones that shipped prior to January 1st, 2009, approximately, depending upon the model, do not work very well. So you basically need a fairly sophisticated graphics card, either the NVIDIA one or the ATI one, or some of the more recent Intel ones. But in general, Apple has kind of dropped support for the integrated Intel graphics card. Not to be confused with the Intel chips, which they still have, the i5, i7, etc. So I would say, like, generally look at your computer, and we require the Intel chips, 64-bit, and a fairly decent graphics card. And so the ballpark is anything within the last 2-3 years is good. Anything before that, you'll probably have difficulty, and we technically don't support it.
Rob, there's a rumbling on the chat board. You're sounding like a Mac geek.
A Mac geek.
Can you comment on that?
A Mac geek. Well, initially I wasn't. As we have
I
these,
think
like,
that's a compliment.
Yeah, I hope so.
He knows his stuff.
Between like we have these debates on the beta forums between, are you like the AutoCAD way of doing things or the Apple way of doing things? I was definitely an AutoCAD guy and have been for 10 years. And once I got assigned to this project, I got to learn a whole bunch of stuff about Macs. So I kind of went, soup to nuts on learning everything there is to learn about Macs and trying to find like what's the right solution for the Mac audience. So, and honestly, like when I started, I was kind of like, really, we're going to the Mac? And as I've gone through this process over the last 2-3 years, I've definitely become a believer. Like the platform's got a lot of pretty awesome stuff to offer. All the mobile stuff is awesome. I have, I guess I have an iMac, I have a Mac Pro, I have a MacBook Air. I had an old iPhone, I had a new iPhone, and I got the old iPad. So yeah, I guess you could say that I've got a few Mac products. What about you, Matt?
I used to be a pretty hardcore PC guy. And yeah,
you worked on some ribbon stuff, if I recall.
I did work on some ribbon stuff, and then came on this project and got a MacBook Pro, and now I have a MacBook Pro and an iPad and an iPhone, and so I still have the stack going on the Mac side.
Excellent.
It's very nice hardware, very nice software.
All right. Well, David has a serious question here.
Let's get serious.
So let's get serious. Will AutoCAD have any special Lion OS X functions?
A special Lion. So again, unfortunately, we can't say what it will and won't have, but we are looking at it certainly. Things that are publicly available, so the Lion Developer Preview 2 is already out there.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have tried to install AutoCAD 2011 for Mac, and there's some known issues out there, but Lion isn't officially released yet. So I think priority number one is get it to work. So I think we want to make sure that all the features that we have currently supported actually work. So that's priority number one, and that keeps changing as Apple comes out with new developer previews. Beyond that, I think there's definitely some interesting things in the Lion release that I think we're trying to explore.
Yep.
The one I like the most is some of the additional gesture support. Like I love the multi-touch aspect of AutoCAD for Mac. Like you can use it like it's paper, you're panning, you're zooming, you're orbiting, and looks like Lion's got sort of like, double tap an object and it'll zoom to that particular object. So we'd have to include things like that in AutoCAD for Mac. We have to do some stuff to make that work, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then there's like some file
automatic saving type
work, saving and recovery, and given how many people use these products all day, file recovery is a pretty big deal.
A huge issue.
And they got that like time machine stuff. I mean, I know that's already out, but it sounds like that capability is almost coming into Lion a little bit. There's also the full screen capability. So AutoCAD for Mac already has full screen. We call it clean screen. It's actually the button in the lower right hand corner. I think it's also Command 0?
Control 0. Yeah,
Command 0.
Control.
So when you say Command 0, you'll actually go to full screen with AutoCAD 2011 for Mac now. So we have to figure out how our full screen mode will play nice with the Lion full screen mode. But things like the mission control and stuff like that, I think we'll probably get for free, just kind of like Expose. So there's a lot of cool, exciting stuff in there, and obviously the Mac App Store is going to be a bigger and increasing piece, and we're still trying to figure out how do people want to use, if they want to use professional CAD software, through a venue like that. Mm-hmm. So we're still trying to figure that out.
Great. So how can someone view DWG files? Is there a way to view DWG files, kind of like with DWG TrueView? You can use that, I know, with PC. Right.
So at the moment, there isn't, except for the AutoCAD WS browser application. Mm-hmm. So if you have a DWG file, upload it to your AutoCAD WS account, and then you open the browser to AutoCADWS.com, and you'll be able to view on your Mac via a browser the application. Yeah. It's not quite the same as DWG TrueView. I think for the best kind of results, I would recommend going all the way to AutoCAD for Mac. But if you can't do that, AutoCAD WS will work in a pinch.
Okay, great. Well, Anthony has a question here. Does AutoCAD for Mac support 3D connections, 3D mice?
At the moment, unfortunately, we do not. So we've gotten some feedback for that, but at the moment we don't. It's a matter of porting over some Windows drivers that we haven't done yet.
All right. So there's a comment about mental ray renderings in AutoCAD for Mac, which is great. But are there plans for Autodesk 3ds Max to give AutoCAD for Mac users more options for rendering? And actually, we've had several questions pertaining to rendering. So if you can talk about any improvements or anything around rendering, that would be great.
So I'm not sure I totally understand this question.
The synergies between 3D Studio Max and AutoCAD for Mac providing more rendering capability probably wouldn't happen. If the question is, will we receive more kind of fine-tuned control over the rendering like you have in 3D 3D Studio Max. I'd say we're always looking for ways in the future to provide more capability where it makes sense in our product portfolio. 3D Studio Max is kind of still the premier application you would go to do very, very advanced 3D rendering.
And we've taken some effort to do kind of consistent visualization and consistent materials across all of the Autodesk products. Right. Not only AutoCAD for Windows to AutoCAD for Mac, but from AutoCAD to 3D Studio Max to Revit to Inventor. So ideally, they all kind of look the same. Like, so if you have a drawing in AutoCAD for Mac and you load it in 3D Studio Max, it should look the same. I don't think that we will bring all of the rendering capabilities of 3D Studio Max into AutoCAD, but it should be enough that workflow is a bit more seamless than it is maybe today. I know that there's definitely some support there, but there are differences, right? With Max being sort of more the polygonal editor, and AutoCAD, at least in 3D, being more of a solid modeling application. There's definitely some differences there, but as long as we have wood in AutoCAD look the same as wood looks in 3D Studio Max, and if you make rendering settings in Max that you can bring over to AutoCAD for Mac, like, you can do that. But I think we're looking for a minimum of support to try and keep the workflow, but in general, 3D Studio Max, as Matt says, is the rendering application of choice.
That said, though, the mental array renderer in AutoCAD for Mac is very, very powerful. And
it's exactly the same. Yeah.
It can produce gorgeous images.
Yeah.
So our time is short. We only have time, I think, for a couple more questions. So let me ask the next question here. This is in regard to the Lion version. Can you talk about support in the Lion version?
Yeah. So I think this is back to sort of the Lion question before. So, I think we would love to be able to support the first version of Lion as it comes out. So the versions that they have now are measured in developer previews. So there was developer preview 1 that really didn't work, developer preview 2, which mostly doesn't work, and then we would expect that there's a developer preview 3 coming out, but we don't really know that for sure. But just based on where things are at, I would expect that to come out. And as those come out, we can start to support Lion from our side, and if we have to issue patches or whatever it is that we're going to do. But until they kind of come out with the product officially, it's going to be difficult for us to say which version we're going to support.
So right now, AutoCAD 2011, AutoCAD for Mac 2011 is available. Will there be any updates, maybe service packs, anything prior to the AutoCAD for Mac 2012 version coming out?
Yeah, so unfortunately we don't comment on whether these things are going to be coming out or not. I will say that we do have a couple service packs out in the field already, but we generally don't comment on when those things are coming and when the next release is coming. So it's unfortunately not something we can answer. Sorry.
Let's see. Can you produce flyby animations in AutoCAD for Mac?
I don't think so.
No, that goes back to the there's a functionality in AutoCAD called Anipath, which is motion path animations, and that was not brought over to AutoCAD for Mac in the first release.
So I think that's probably our last question here. So I want to thank everybody for joining us and asking great questions. And I think it's been really helpful and helps.
It's a lot of fun for us.
Yeah, it gets the message out there. Our next webcast is actually, as I said, going to be about AutoCAD WS. I believe it's going to be next Thursday, 9 a.m.
Yeah.
9 a.m. Next Thursday, 9 a.m. So a week and a day from the start of this one, same time. And I think we'll feature some of the development managers and stuff from the AutoCAD WS team, so they'll give you some insight into that product. With that, thank you, Matt, for all your time, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.
Bye.